Earful Tower listeners, it's Monday in Paris, the snow is gone, the river's not flooded anymore, so you'd be forgiven for thinking nothing is happening in Paris right now. But that is not true, because as you know by now, Monday means a new episode of the Earful Tower, and we've got a good one for you today. But for all you people listening for the first time wondering what the heck is the Earful Tower, it's a podcast hosted by me, an Australian, a clueless Australian, some people have said. My name is Oliver G, and I'm trying to figure out France each week with the help of guests who know best. We've been doing this for about a year now, so all you guys who've been around for a year, you know the story. All you new guys, welcome. So, before we even get into it, I want to say a big thanks to the Patreon supporters for essentially making this program possible. Big thanks to you guys. For all of you who want to join in, all the links are there. You'll be able to figure it out. And thanks in advance if you do. But on for today's episode. Ever heard of Janine Marsh? If not, she's the woman that runs the website The Good Life France, and she's written a new book. It's a bestseller, and it's called My Good Life in France. So she came here early in the morning very recently, and we talked about her new book. We talked a lot about the difference between Paris and France, you see, because she lives in the countryside with dozens and dozens and dozens of animals, and it's not the typical Paris guest that I have on, so we have a little bit of a chat about the difference between Paris and the countryside. After that, I headed to one of my favorite cafes, the Peloton, where I had a chat to tour guide Christian Osborne, who works there, and he tells me about his favorite day trip outside of Paris. You see what I've done there? I've kept it on the theme of Paris outside of Paris. He's been here for about 15 years in Paris, so he should know a good day trip, I reckon. And where was his tip? Whereabouts? I'll give you a clue. It's the region that has the same name as one of France's most famous drinks. So if you're thinking about cognac, you are wrong. Anyway, before we head to Janine, a little bit of Earful Tower news. Did you guys catch the video that I put on Facebook about how to fake a French accent? If not, well, I was going to say pause this, go listen to it. Don't worry about it. It's just a minute long. I just wanted to announce that since I've last spoken to you, that's gone up over 1 million views. So that is a success. I've written a little piece about how I got my first million through the Earful Tower. Unfortunately, not dollars or euros, but 1 million hits is something to celebrate. Check that on theearfultower.com. What else? Yeah, I'm going to be teaching, get this, I'm going to be teaching podcasting at the American University of Paris for a few lessons starting this week, actually. So there's some good stories, potentially, but a bit of content for me to tell you guys about later, or I don't know, it might be fun for the students as well. If you guys are listening, which I've heard that you're meant to be in the lead up to our classes, hello to you, and I'll see you on Thursday. Anyway, I think that's about all now. Let's get into the show, and remember to hang around at the end for that story about a day trip outside of Paris and a few reviews that I'm going to read out. Let's get on with it.
One man, one country, one red scooter. Here's the Earful Tower with Oliver G.
Janine Marsh, welcome.
Good morning.
I cut you off. Straight from the beginning, there's tension in the room. I'm really excited to have you in here for a number of reasons. But firstly, because it's taken a while to organize this meeting, because you're not in Paris.
No.
Where are you?
I'm in the north of Paris, about 2.5 hours north, in the area known as Pas-de-Calais, and I live in an area called the Seven Valleys.
Right. You know, before we even get into it, Pas-de-Calais is always intrigued me because it's not, the part is the word for not as well, right?
Yes.
So it's like saying not Calais.
Yes.
What's all that about?
Who knows?
So it's like saying, where are you from? Oh, I'm from, part of Australia. I'm not from Australia.
Not of Australia,
Yeah.
but I'm from Australia.
That must be a confusing start to, your daily life up there.
I actually never really think about it.
No.
So
No.
no.
So the reason I've got you in today, besides the fact that you've written a book and you've got a website and a magazine, is to talk about how Paris and France aren't the same thing, or maybe are the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to get your initial reaction on that before I start asking you questions. Is it fair to say Paris is just like the rest of the country?
Absolutely not.
Does it make your skin crawl when people say it?
No, not at all. I think a lot of people think that London is England or London is the UK, and I think that's completely normal because when you're travelling thousands of miles from America or Australia or somewhere else and you come to France, you're going to go to Paris because, Paris is the icon. It's where the Eiffel Tower is. It's where the Louvre is, and we all want to see those things.
So do you get emails from readers and stuff saying, oh, I bet you love having a choice of 1,000 cafe terraces, things like that? Do people seem to get it wrong, or when they know who you are, they know that you're more likely to be running around with animals?
A bit of both, really. I think if I put a picture on of a local cafe where I live, people will still say, I love Paris, because they'll
Yeah,
think
right.
they'll think it's Paris because it's France. So
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. You know, a lot of people do think Paris is France. And then from the book and from blogging for almost 6 years now, people do know that I've got 72 animals and that I live in the middle of nowhere.
Let's talk a bit about these animals. 72 animals.
Yeah.
That's not typical of anyone.
Yes and no. Brits are weird about animals. We come out here and all of a sudden we've got this space and we've got lots of garden, and a stray cat will turn up and then another, and that's pretty much what happened to me.
Right.
So I'm not alone in this. In fact, I know a British couple who live in the Dordogne, and they lost one of their dogs.
Dordogne, for anyone who's got no idea.
Southwest France.
Bordeaux area? Yep,
Yeah,
okay.
just above Bordeaux. And they had 2 old dogs, and one sadly died, so they went to the local sanctuary to get another one. And they found there were loads of old dogs, and no one wanted to give them one because up till now, no one wanted to rehome an old dog. But so they managed to persuade someone to give them an old dog, and they ended up going home with 7.
Yeah.
And now they've got 35 dogs.
That's excessive.
So
that's a bit excessive.
You think, bad, there's worse.
Hang on, but you got 72. That's twice as many.
I've only got 3 dogs.
Okay, well, that's all right.
And 7 cats.
Okay.
4 geese.
Keep going.
32 ducks.
Okay. Doesn't count. Ducks
And the rest
don't
are
count.
chickens.
The ducks and chickens don't count.
Oh, they do.
I think they count as one. Because it's like a flock, right?
Okay, I've got 10.
Right. Okay, what do for a bit of context for people to feel like they're with us this morning, we met, some would say ridiculously early, 8 o'clock. That's pretty early, at Gare du Nord,
Yes.
the big train station. I grabbed a coffee from Starbucks, expensive, $5.45 for that, you know.
Oh, I went in the one opposite and I had tea with ginger and lemon. It was €2.50. So
thanks for telling me that when we met.
Try L'Eclair de Genie opposite Starbucks if you don't want to spend euros.
I love this. You've come on the show as an outside of Paris person giving tips on Paris.
Yes, sorry.
No, I like it. It's great. But you know, you've taught me something this morning. You might laugh and it might sound stupid, but I was convinced. So there's this ring road that runs around Paris. It's called the Périphérie, right? And I'm always in central Paris.
Yeah.
I thought that on the edge of that ring road were just cliffs, like the cliffs of Dover, and that Paris was the whole country. But talking to you, I'm realizing there's a lot more going on in this country.
I've got this image now of the Paris being on top of a cliff and nothing else around it, like an island.
Yeah, like the cliffs of Dover.
So not true.
No, not true. There's so much more. And this is what we want to talk about today a little bit. There's just so much outside of Paris. So many tourists will come here. Maybe they'll do a day trip to Versailles or Fontainebleau with the castle and stuff like that. Great.
Yeah.
Do it. Encouraged.
Yeah.
But do you think it's like outside of Paris and the kind of places you live, Pas de Calais, those kind of areas, are they worth visiting for a tourist? Or is a typical tourist who maybe doesn't speak French, are they going to freak out?
No.
All the ducks and chickens.
I always, readers say to me, what can I do to see another part of Paris or France? And I'll always give them advice and say, one of my top tips is just hop on the train at Gare de l'Est and 45 minutes later you're in Reims. Or
hang on, okay,
in Champagne.
Yeah.
And then go and do it. You can walk from the station, you don't need a car. Go and do a champagne tasting in one of the big houses, go and see the cathedral there, get a feel for what it's like in a different region. There are so many places. You can go to Rouen quite easily in Normandy. Timber Houses, the oldest restaurant in France. There's just so much more.
That's in
and
Rouen, the oldest restaurant in France.
And Monet's Garden in Giverny is also quite an easy day trip.
I've driven past that one.
Past?
Yeah, I was
Oh my God.
I was on the way I was going to Normandy, and I was in kind of a rush, and I saw it from the outside, and I said, well, that's where it is. But there was a queue out, there was a line out the front.
That's so bad.
Wrong.
It's worth, everyone that's listeing, it's worth the queue. Just
go
get
on,
on the
I've
queue
got no
and go
idea.
in.
Tell me more about that.
He's made a mistake.
Well, that's everyone that listens to this. No, I don't know what I'm doing. But I've made a mistake. What did I miss in there?
It is quite a stunning garden, probably one of the best I've ever seen in my life. It's like an artwork come to life in front of you with plants and flowers, and it's just absolutely stunning.
Can you on the winter and stuff as well, or is it just
No, it's open from March to November.
Okay.
So you can only go in the summer months, and I would say don't go in full summer. Too many people. It does get really crowded. But it was left neglected for quite a long time after he died. His son inherited, and when his son died, it got left abandoned for a little while, and now it's been brought back to exactly how it was. It is like a palette of floral colours. It's absolutely amazing, and the town itself is gorgeous.
So if anyone's listening thinking, this woman Janine, for an author of a book about her life in France, seems to know a lot of tourist information, it's because you got a site as well. You got a website with quite an interesting story behind it, if you don't mind me saying. My version of it, correct me if I'm wrong, but you started it for your mates, 25 of them. You told me before we turned on the microphones. You said you had 25 friends.
Well, when I moved to France, I'd worked in a bank before that.
Yes, let's take it from the start. So you're in London.
I was in London.
You're a Cockney.
I'm a Cockney.
As I understand, the first person...
Your first Cockney?
I think you're my first Cockney. So if people that don't know what a Cockney is, you'd say...
born within the sound of Bow Bells in
in
East London.
Which is, so it's quite a literal, you know...
It's quite an old-fashioned
Others
thing.
say Dick Van Dyke.
Dick Van Dyke. Mary Poppins.
Yeah. Hello, Mary.
Hello.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah?
Not.
No, was that a good imitation of Dick Van Dyke doing Cockney accent?
A very good Dick Van Dyke.
Yeah. Hello, Mary.
Yeah,
what else?
excellent.
Poppinge. Yeah. Okay.
You should be in the new film when it comes out.
I'll write that on the back cover of my book when or on the back cover of the podcast.
Cockney wannabe.
Should be in a film. No. So you started in London as a banker, having a good life. This is great. Working in a bank.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's very corporate. I worked in an office. I worked my way up from secretary, and at one point, everything changed because my mum died, and you know, it's an awful thing to go through. And she was just 3 months into retirement, and I think it made me think differently about the world and what I wanted. And a year later, I took my dad to Calais on a booze cruise. It's very popular from London.
Is it?
Yeah, you take a ferry across the English
you drink
Channel.
on the ferry or in
you
Calais?
You can drink on the ferry, yes.
Why is it a booze cruise, though? Is it mostly because of...
Because for people from the UK, it's cheaper to buy wine and
Sure,
beer
I
and
gotcha.
whiskey
Yep.
in France. There's less tax.
Yep.
So it's a real thing for Brits to come over on the ferry, hour and a half, go to Calais, go to one of the big warehouses, buy booze. Then my dad started
Look at a bell tower when you're in Calais.
The UNESCO bell tower, Rodin's Six Burgers. There are
So
restaurants.
this woman knows what's going on. All right, okay.
Mussels and chips.
And your website is?
The Good Life France.
I knew that. I was just letting you see. You say it better than I said. Okay, so you take your dad over on a booze cruise.
Trying to get him onto wine instead of whiskey. He was very depressed after my mum died.
Sure.
And we turned up, a horrible grey February wet day. The restaurants were all shut because it was out of season. And we went for a drive for an hour. Still couldn't find anywhere to find anything to eat.
So you have your own car? Or did you rent one? Okay.
Yeah, I was with my husband and my dad.
I'm picturing it, you know. Hey, you know, like a lot of people that listen to this show, I've met a lot of them over the off season. They listen in on their commutes. So now they're all driving, and they're all thinking that they're in Calais, driving on a booze cruise. So let's keep going. Let's paint this picture.
Okay, let's paint the picture.
We're in like Montana now.
You're in a car. The sky is the colour of lead. Oh. The sleet falling. The fields around you are muddy and boggy. The cows look miserable. You go through villages where everything is shut and the shutters are shut against the cold. And
sounds like a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Yeah, it was a bit. And then suddenly you arrive in a little village and an estate agent offers you a cup of coffee and the chance to look at some cheap houses.
You said no, there's a ginger tea across the road for €2.
There was nothing across the road. So he said how much Mev, and I said I haven't got any money at all. But he persuaded me to look at the 3 cheapest houses on his books. Right. And I thought, you've got nothing else to do, so why not? Yeah. And we went and looked, and 2 of them were absolutely vile, like something out of The Hills Have Eyes.
Oh.
Quite scary.
Yeah.
And the third one was not attractive. It was a hovel, but I don't know what happened. That grey sky suddenly cleared enough for the sun to come out, a beam of sunshine. The church bells rang, ducks quacked.
A moment of enlightenment.
Yeah, I heard fate.
Yeah, you heard fate.
I heard fate.
What did it sound like? Bells?
It sounded like buy this house, so I did.
Really?
Yes.
So you just bought the house?
Yes.
And then what?
I decided after a while to give up work and go and renovate it with my husband. Actually, he blackmailed me. He said he would go without me. So
is he going to be listening to this now?
No,
okay.
Not at the moment.
Okay,
but
good. Now he's definitely not.
Maybe later. No, he knows that it's in the book, and he accepts that he blackmailed me now.
Yeah. How did he blackmail you?
He said he would go without me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So he was more into it, even though you heard the fate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. By that time, I'd worked my way up at work from secretary to almost director. I was about to be made a director, which is quite something. And
You got to
But-
answer fate. You got to answer that
Yeah.
little angel on your shoulder when it's talking to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was thinking of my mum and,
Sure.
taking a chance, take a risk and
Mm.
follow your dream. So
a
I
bit
did
like
it.
a bit like Peter Mayle, the guy that wrote Year in Provence,
Yes.
who recently died.
Yeah.
He had
very
a
sad.
similar sort of, wasn't he the first that kind of?
He was. He just took off and took a year out to go there,
Sure.
and that changed his life.
Do writers like you look
Uh,
up to him and what he did,
Yeah,
or
I
is
think,
it?
I
Yeah.
think he's absolutely brilliant. But I think the one big difference between him and me is I was potless. I had no money. So
What's a potless? I've never heard that before.
potless is a London term for penniless.
Haven't even got a pot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I won't go the whole hog because it's
Yeah.
got a swear word in.
No, go on, do it.
Tell you, I haven't got a pot to piss in. I'd
Oh
say.
my god! I wish you didn't say that,
Sorry.
Janine. Okay, so then your husband blackmails you. You come down. The rest is basically history. You start a website.
Yep, we were renovating a lot. People phoning up all the time. What are you doing? I broke fingers and toes carrying breeze blocks. We really did renovate ourselves.
Yeah.
Dirt floors, the works. This
Mm.
place really was a money pit hovel, and so people at work said I was like The Good Life. It used to be a sitcom.
Oh, I know The Good Life.
Yeah,
with
Felicity Kendall.
Felicity Kendall
Yeah.
and Tom
Yeah, I can't
Goodhart or something like that.
remember.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
Richard Bryars, I think it was.
What's
in real
Tom
life.
Goodhart then?
Yeah, that was his.
Oh, that's
actor-
actually
that was his
yeah.
name in the program.
Yeah. Well, that
So-
must have resonated with British people because that was a popular show.
Yeah, it was about a middle-aged couple who ran away from city life and tried to grow their own vegetables and keep chickens. And
Self-sustainable. Yeah.
that was meant to be me. So
So you're the Felicity Kendall.
of Pas-de-Calais,
Oh,
yes.
I don't know if that would have worked as the book title, but fair enough. Yeah, okay. So you started a blog. It got picked up traction. Financial Times starts writing about you. Someone offers you a book deal. The book comes out, and now you're on book tour.
Yes.
And here's a question: Does your families and friends,
Mm-hmm.
obviously they read the book because you have to.
Because I make them.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Do you ever have people who you're surprised haven't read it? You know what I mean? I got a friend who wrote a book and his brother didn't read it, and he was really upset.
No, I haven't actually asked anyone because I don't want to know the answer. But I
Mm.
do know that there are a couple of family members who probably haven't read it.
And how does that make you feel?
It's up to them.
Yeah.
We've all got to make a choice.
Well, it's
if that's
weird,
what
isn't
you
it? Because
want.
it's like when people, like even with this podcast, I know some of my close family and stuff don't listen to it.
Well,
Which
they're
is,
missing out.
well, they're not going to hear you tell them that. But you know what I
They're
mean?
missing out.
It's weird because, I don't. If they work in a bank, let's say,
Mhm.
I don't go and support them working in the bank. You
Mhm.
know, and when you've got the book and it's going well, is there a reason for them to read it anyway? You know what I mean? Like it's kind of obviously, I'd think they should.
Yes and no. I think when you work, having worked in a bank, having worked in an office, you don't need that support.
No,
but when
yeah,
you're
that's a good point.
a starving artist
Yeah.
who's trying to be creative, trying to do something different with your life, I think the support should be there.
Good point. You need support.
I would
when you're
support
starting
all
out.
my friends and family.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about Paris.
Yes.
Because let's be honest. This show is called the Earful Tower,
Yes.
named after the Eiffel Tower,
Mhm.
and the subtext is figuring out France.
Mhm.
And I don't really do much of France. I do a lot of Paris, but I think this week we can sort of do a mix of the two. What's your thoughts on Paris?
I absolutely adore Paris.
Yeah.
Well, I hope to. I live in rural bliss at the moment with my animals, but I hope to live here one day.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So where would you
For
live?
6 months.
How well do you know it?
Not well enough,
Mm.
but I'd like to know it better.
You got a favourite arrondissement?
I like the 19th.
Yep.
I like the community spirit in the 19th.
It's a bit
I
like Marseille,
yes.
you told me.
Yeah, I do feel
once
it's a bit
before.
like that. It's quite a melting pot of
Yeah.
people, but there's a lot of respect there for
Sure,
everybody, a
sure,
lot
sure.
of tolerance. And I like the 13th as well. It's very artistic.
I'm never down on the 13th.
Really big on street art. So
Oh, yeah?
so if you're
Oh,
into
that's like
street
the
art,
Boutokai and stuff like
Yes.
yeah.
although I think Paris is big on street art anyway.
Sure.
So
Sure.
I like all the arrondissements, I think.
No, you can't say that. That's banned on this show. You can't
Is
say you
it?
like all of them. No.
I just took that
Exactly.
back.
We're going to edit that one out. So if you come here, do you think you'll live in one of those areas for 6 months?
Yes.
You know, it'd be cool for that 6 months to spend 2 weeks in a different Airbnb in
That
every
would
arrondissement.
Be amazing,
Wouldn't
wouldn't
it?
it? Yeah.
I'd
There's-
like to do that. I'd like to stay in. I've yet to propose it to anyone, but I'd like to do house swaps with people so that I can get to know different areas of the city really well.
You can do that. There are house sitting
I don't want to do it
companies that
officially.
do that.
My landlord might be listening to this as well. Then I'll be in trouble.
You'll have to edit that bit
Yeah.
out.
Oh my God. We're gonna have to be editing half of this chat out. All right. Okay, tell me more about Paris. I mean, are you often here, and when you are here, are you doing touristy things, or is it related to the book?
I'm a total tourist when I come to Paris. I think Paris is a tourist's dream. There's so much to see, so much art, culture, history, cafes, restaurants, you name it.
You prefer it to London?
That's a really horrible question to ask me.
I know.
Honestly, yes.
Yeah,
I do,
Look
actually.
At that. Wow.
I think of myself as a total Francophile. France is in my heart, but I absolutely love London. But there's something about Paris when you're walking around the streets and you suddenly discover a little cobbled alleyway and a tiny cafe down there, and there might be an Edith Piaf style singer. And I have come across cafes that are like that, like stepping back into the past, and I don't see that in London. But I do in Paris, and I love that.
Why do you think that is?
I think the French are really loyal and really big on heritage and patrimony, and that's different from any country I've been in the world. And they adore their past.
Do you think that that might sort of stop France and Paris from moving forward? Like eventually they're going to have to build better plumbing systems and better, stronger buildings and stuff. And eventually they're just going to have to. They're going to have to replace stuff. That's a fact, right?
Yes.
So do you think that eventually France will have to stray away from the way it looks and the way it's built?
I think Paris is already making some moves. like in the 13th, there's massive building projects with new blocks of flats, but they're very smart blocks of flats, and the huge new Library of France, Bibliothèque de France, is there, and I do see change. But you're right, plumbing. Let's not even go there.
Is there a plumbing story in your book?
Yes.
Do you know every book has a plumbing story?
This is France.
Yeah.
I mean, if you come to France, be prepared for a plumbing
It's
excitement.
true. I've had plumbing stuff too. It's just part of the package. It's just part of the package in this country.
You get used to it.
I was reading this book, Parisians by Graham Robb. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was reading it and I was at the bit where they're explaining how Haussmann redesigned everything to make it look how it looks and all that. And it just got me thinking that if, like, the way the city looks is a lot thanks to him and old Napoleon, as I understand. And then I was thinking, in 500 years, it's not going to look the same, right? Surely it's going to keep changing. Surely they're going to have to eventually build higher and stuff like that.
I think some places will still look the same. I've just come back from Sarlat in Dordogne, and it looks, I reckon, if someone from 500 years ago came back and walked down the Rue de République, which wouldn't have been called that then, obviously, because that came after the French Revolution.
Sure.
But they'd recognise that street.
Wow. Isn't that cool? Like
Yes.
when you were talking about walking down the cobbled alley in Paris, it almost gives you shivers to think about how, the same people that have walked down those cobblestones, all these people from all these stories that we've been reading in the past. It's exciting.
I absolutely agree.
I'm not calling for change. That's not what I'm scared of it.
I don't think you need to be scared. I mean, yes, it's a tourist dream, and places like Café de Flore, they are a cliche.
Sure.
But to sit there knowing that Picasso sat there or Ernest Hemingway sat there, for me, that's absolute. I love that.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Yeah. I'm always thinking about that stuff when I'm walking around on the left bank, which is kind of seldom, to be honest, because it's very far. It's very far away and dangerous. But it's not dangerous. I take that back. But this, I'm often on the right bank, and I'm trying to make more forays into the left bank.
I love Montmartre.
I
think that's my favourite, and there's so many secrets there. Like there's a cinema called Studio 28.
Hang on, friends of the show, Lost in Translation, they're putting movies into English up there.
Yes.
It's really cool. They've been on the show before, but that's cool. I've been in there.
It's such a beautiful cinema, and to think that Salvador Dali went there to watch films, and Jean Cocteau, the avant-garde artist, designed the projection room and the lighting there. And you have no idea when you see the door that if you go through to the back, there's a tiny little courtyard where you can have an aperitif before you watch the film. And to me, that's so sophisticated and elegant and so Paris, but it's a tiny element of Paris that no one ever really knows about. Everyone heads to the Eiffel Tower, but my thoughts are dig a bit deeper.
I think what you said is exactly right for tourists coming here. I mean, it's worth seeing the Eiffel Tower and stuff, and I've talked about that before, but that idea of when you walk past a cinema that maybe doesn't look like much from the front, you never know what's not just inside but through that door out the back. That's kind of a metaphor for the whole city, isn't it?
Do you know, I think that's a metaphor for France. Yes, Paris isn't France, but France is like that. You'll find a building, then you think from the outside, that's not much. what am I going to find in here? Shall I bother? And often you go in and behind is an oasis or something that you have no indication from outside. So I'd always say, don't be put off by what you see outside. Just go through those doors.
Yeah.
You might be really surprised.
Well, on that note, I think we can start to wrap things up. I want to ask you, have you got plans for a second book? I know your first book has been a success. Can we say runaway success?
No, I wouldn't say
No, we couldn't
run
say
away.
run away.
No, I don't
Walk away? Strolling vaguely in the opposite direction?
Yeah, strolling success. It's a bestseller.
Strolling success.
It's a bestseller on Amazon.
Yeah, well,
So
that's cool.
That's good.
So that's enough to warrant a second book.
Yes, I'm talking to the publishers about
Yeah.
that.
How does
so-
that? Is that? I mean, I've got no idea how all this kind of stuff works. But if you write a successful book, surely the publisher's going to want another one.
Yes, but there's not a lot of money in books, and you don't write a book to become rich.
No.
If you write 50 Shades of Grey, you might get really, really lucky.
True,
At
true.
the right time.
Hey, they could make your book into a movie.
I'm speaking to a script writer from
There
LA
you
next
go.
week, so we'll see.
I wanna finish on this question.
Mhm.
Who would play you in the movie?
Oh God, that's such a hard question.
And what age would you like? Keep in mind that they might want to make you older or younger. Like you can pick anyone. It doesn't have to be someone that exactly
Really?
matches you. You know?
God, I have no idea. Somebody small with with big hair is all
Somebody
I'll say.
small with big hair. Who's that?
Small with big hair and who can do a good Cockney accent, because they're making my book into an audio book, and I've heard the lady who's doing it, and she's got quite a posh voice. So
Oh, really?
I'm interesting to see how that goes.
Wow. I'm not gonna allow you to escape without giving me an actress's name.
I can't remember it. It's nobody well known.
No?
No.
Well, no. I mean the one for who's gonna play you in the movie. You know who I can picture, and I hope it's not.
Tell me.
Helena Bonham Carter.
Oh, go for it. Yeah.
Really?
Oh, God, I would love
Why?
that.
Because she's big and famous.
Yeah.
No.
And I think she's a
She'd do
brilliant
something.
actress
Yeah, but
as
she'd
well.
do something weird about it. She'd make you a goth or something.
I don't mind that. I
Really?
mean, you can't see me, but Oliver can. And believe me, I'm not a goth at all.
Well, I can also give 50% of the truth here, and she's a bit of a goth.
Oh,
and,
really?
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, you're so kind.
Okay, well, we've been talking for a bit of time now, so I think we
Yes.
got to postpone the end of the conversation until next time. Will you come back on the show next time in
I'd
Paris?
absolutely love to.
Exciting. And one day, if I ever make it up into Pas de Calais, not Calais, I'd love to see your collection of, what's the word for it? Menagerie?
Yes,
of animals?
menagerie. Yeah.
French word.
Yes.
Just means zoo.
Zoo
Yeah.
animals, a lot of them that
Yeah.
need cleaning. It's not all fun and glamour, you know.
I'll stick with Paris for now, but maybe I'll
Yeah,
come
I
visit
would.
you at some point. But Janine, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank
The book is My Good Life in France.
Yes.
The website is The Good Life
Yes.
France. Check it out. Buy the book, and you'll thank me later.
Thank you very much for having me.
I didn't
on the
mean
show.
you. I didn't mean
appreciate
you'd thank
it.
me later, Jing. I meant the listeners, maybe.
No, I thank you for having me on the show. It's
Cool.
been brilliant.
And looking forward to see you next time. And enjoy your time in Paris.
Au revoir.
You're listening to the Earful Tower podcast.
So, Christian, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good, man.
Sitting in the Peloton Cafe.
Yes.
Filter coffee? Is that what this is?
Yeah, this is filter coffee, yeah.
So usually I have people in the studio, but now we're in the cafe for a little bit of background sound.
Yeah,
Real Parisian feel.
good ambience.
Exactly. And you said that you'd tell me, you promoted it as the best day trip out of Paris.
That's right, yep.
Sell it to me. What is it? I'm on tenterhooks.
Well, I don't know if it's the best, but anyway, it's my favorite.
That
So,
counts as the best.
I don't know. You think?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Well, it depends what you say.
Okay. Well, after kind of 15 years of living here and taking many day trips from Paris, definitely my favorite has to be the Champagne region.
Right. As in Champagne.
Champagne.
So my problem with this is Champagne, big region, don't know where to start.
Yeah, well, firstly, most people don't know it's actually a region.
What do
You
they
know?
think? It's a bottle of...
Yeah, it's a sparkling wine, you know. But Champagne is a region. It's actually 340 villages that make up Champagne.
Yeah, I thought it was just one village.
No, so it's a whole region.
Okay.
340 villages east of Paris. And really the reason it's a fantastic day trip, not only do you get to drink champagne, but it's literally, some of the villages are less than an hour from Paris.
Right. That's way closer than I thought.
It's amazing, yeah.
But why is it special for you?
Well, firstly, you know, it's probably the most famous drink in the world. Yeah, most people don't know it's made less than an hour from Paris. Secondly, I love wine. And I've always loved farms as well, and that's what Champagne is. It's a whole area of farmers. vineyards everywhere. And again, I think most people never would have realized there's, vineyards everywhere, 40 minutes from Paris.
So take me through it. Like, if you were to go out to Champagne, if you're just a regular Joe off the street,
Yeah.
Do you get on a train, or you obviously do bike tours out there, but
Yeah.
is that the recommended way to see it? I guess
Champagne's interesting. I think 90% of tourists going out there probably don't get the best experience.
Why not?
Well, most people will take the train to one of two cities. One is Reims, which
the most unpronounceable name
It
in the
is.
entire world.
not an easy one to pronounce.
Reims, some people
Yes.
call it.
Reims. So that's the biggest kind of commercial capital of Champagne. They've got the big cathedral there where all the kings of France were crowned throughout the centuries. A lot of the big champagne houses are based there, like Mumm. You've got other ones there. Veuve Clicquot as well is based there. But really what people miss, I think, are the little villages that make up Champagne, those 340 villages, which are those families making champagne in their house, basically.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
It's very cool.
So tell me, let's say I'm a tourist in Paris. I touch down, scared to do a day trip, don't know where to go. Is that the coffee machine in the background? Everything's
It is,
happening. Yeah. So then where do you get the train to?
So you can take the train from the east train station, the Gare de l'Est, about an hour, either to Reims, or to Épernay.
Okay.
And Épernay is actually where Moët and Chandon is based. That's where the headquarters is. You can tour their massive cellars. I think they have something like 25 kilometers. What is that, like 15 miles or so?
I don't know, I don't do
There
the
you go.
miles, but I'm
Gotta do both.
You're American, you're from Florida?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So you can explore their 15 miles of cellars. That is quite a great trip. Again, if you can get outside the town, though, to some of the small villages, that's really what I would recommend. I mean, bikes are a great way to do it because it allows you to kind of get out along the river, the Marne River, and see some of those small towns.
And do you guys do that on electric bikes?
We actually do, yeah. We do e-bikes because it is, it goes up and down. It's quite.
Can you
hilly.
do it on a normal bike?
Yeah. Need a little bit of fitness probably for that, but
It'd be good on a scooter.
wood Vespa,
Yeah.
Got to watch how many tastings you do.
It's
But
true. Is that a problem with people on electric bikes?
no, over the years we've been pretty good. Yeah, pretty reasonable kind of customers out there.
It's not customers end up throwing their bikes in the River Marne or anything like
No,
that.
although it's funny, what we noticed is that on the trip out to Champagne on the train, there was always a lot of chit chat. People getting to know each other. Then on the way back, everyone's asleep. So
Oh, really? I thought it would have been the other way around. Like on
Nah.
the way back, everyone's best friends and sort of switching email addresses and stuff like
a
that.
little bit of that, but most people are asleep.
Okay, well, that's a good tip. So that's the best, or your favorite day trip outside of Paris.
Absolutely.
Because Paris isn't just Paris. Paris is the day trips. People
Yeah.
forget that, don't they?
I mean, I forgot that for living here 15 years. You forget sometimes that you have access to some of the most beautiful villages in Europe. So close. So
Perfectly said, Christian from Bike Outdoors and from Peloton Cafe,
yeah, thanks, Oliver.
where they're selling the tote bags that everyone's talking about.
That's true.
Yeah.
And looks like they're making appearances around the world now.
That's true.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
The
Yeah,
tote
we've
bags.
seen. I've had pictures from listeners in Malaysia and Niagara Falls. I was going to say America, but they're on the Canadian side, so
Okay.
it doesn't count. But yeah, that's a good point, Christian. If anyone else has got one around the world, send in a picture. Can't you take one to Florida next time?
I will, yeah, and maybe actually to Champagne next time we're out there.
That would be really good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, on that note, thanks for coming in, Christian.
Thanks,
well,
Oliver.
Thanks for, I guess I came in this time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But until next time, thank you. Well, there you have it. That was a chat with Janine Marsh and her interesting book there, bestseller, Stroll Away, Walk Away Seller, or whatever we said back there, and a chat with Christian from Le Peloton. So if you want to go in and buy one of my tote bags to support the show, there's a good idea. Or if you just want to join in on Patreon, there's another good idea. A lot of fun. People are saying it's the most fun on Patreon that you can have with your clothes on. I don't even know what that means. Anyway, I thought I'd read out a few reviews that have come in since I last sort of asked you guys to give reviews, because I think that's a bit of fun. So here's 3 reviews. First one here, sent in by Florian663. That's not your last name, I don't think, 663. A must-hear, she says on iTunes here. It's about time I leave a review here about this now essential podcast. Each episode gives me the assurance to spend a great time listening to the host, Oliver G., and a really nice bunch of guests. There's a bit more there, but you're right. We do have a nice bunch of guests, and thanks for pointing that out. Florian663, nice to hear from you. Here's another one from Jack City Kiddo. Interesting name, Jack City Kiddo. This is a must-listen for Francophiles, he says, calling it, or she, could be a she, calling it a perfect dose of Paris. Olive G does a fantastic job curating great Parisian stories and makes you feel like you're in Paris with him. I hope to sign up for his tours when I'm in Paris someday. Well, I don't do tours. You know, the truth is I do sometimes. Get in contact if you're, especially Patreon followers, some of whom have been getting in contact with me lately and meeting up. But I'm not a tour guide. I'll show you the Earful Paris, but I'm no history expert. And here's an email I got in from FrankieBoy123. He says, Dear Oliver, I'm a huge fan of the show, and I especially like the episode about the canal crocodiles and your search for Mary. Can you do more like those, please? Well, Frankie boy, thanks for your comment. I also like those episodes, and often when I ask people which episode they like the best, they say those ones, the crocodile one and the one I called Finding Mary. Thing is, those ones take a lot of time, and they're original stories, so they're hard to come by. But I had an idea when I read your email, Frankie boy, and that's if anyone out there has a mystery, if you've seen a ghost, or if you got a long lost lover or relative, and you want me to help track them down. I mean, I'd probably even get the German tarot card reader in again, or maybe even the detective, as I did in the episode Finding Mary. But if you've got a story that you think needs to be told, send me an email and maybe I'll do it for you, because I also like doing those stories. They're quite fun. Anyway, I think that is the episode for this week. We'll see you on Monday as usual for an episode. There's going to be some bonus stuff on patreon.com/the Earful Tower. And as usual, follow along on Facebook for the occasional video, the occasional live walking tour. It's all going on. Thanks for being here and being part of it with me. And I'll see you next time I see you. Au revoir.